Benvenuti amici di Lago Film Fest, siamo qui oggi presenti con il regista McGlocklin, regista di Forever, che è in competizione al Lago Film Fest nella categoria Nuovi Segni. Hello Mitch, how are you?
Hi, I'm doing well. How are you?
We're doing good. So, first, why don't you talk about yourself and talk us a little about Forever, what it is, and what can you tell us about that in your own words?
So Forever is an experimental animated film about AI and about myself. And I have a background in live action filmmaking. I went to school for that. But then I went to school for animation, and Forever was actually my thesis film for my graduate program for animation. And it uses experimental technique using LiDAR, which is light detection and ranging. And it was developed for self-driving cars, but I used it to make a film, and it merges with the content of the film well because the film's about AI and how AI observes us. And so self-driving cars they use AI software to navigate, and they use LiDAR to see us.
Okay, yes, the short movie is a real pleasure to the eyes, and it's a really experimental in its nature, and we are really proud to have it in our festival. So, Forever is basically your first film, like produced, directed, and written by yourself, right?
Yeah, it is. I mean, I was in school for a long time, and I made work there, but this is like the first film that I've really put out there.
Okay. And actually, it got a lot of good reception, including like festivals like Sundance, and earlier you mentioned the Festival of Annecy. And I was wondering what is the feeling of your first like out there work being received such positively.
Um, it's incredible, and it's very unexpected and overwhelming because when I was making the film, it was my graduation film, and I didn't really show anyone until it was pretty much done. So really, only one person had seen it, my main advisor, Kathy Smith.
Hmm.
Because I was kind of thinking, oh, this is such a personal film. It's kind of me talking for 7 minutes. No one's going to think it's that interesting. And then I finished it, and I showed it to some of my friends, and they were like, oh, this is really good. And I was, um, I thought, oh, okay, cool. And so I went ahead and submitted it. I wasn't really planning on submitting it to festivals. And then I went ahead and did it. And then I got a really big response. And it's been very interesting to get feedback from people who see it and really connected with it because it's so personal to me. It's a true story about me, and it's me, my voice talking about me, and as it just said me a lot. Um, so, so yeah. So I mean, playing at Sundance was incredible. Um, there were so many great filmmakers. Yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah. So it came as a shock, in short, basically.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, as you said, the short movie used the lidar camera.
Mhm.
For who, in more detail, is like, as you said, a camera for self-driving cars that works on AI and everything. What I was wondering to know, if we can get like a more detailed about how exactly did you use the camera with your animation skills, because the short movie is basically like a mixture of a mise en scène with a camera and your work of animation, of 3D animation, and I guess motion capture. So I was hoping to know a little more about in detail about the how the production went along, like how like first day on the set, how did it all go?
Um, well, there was no set. It was, it's hard to categorize a film. Like it's shown in some documentary sections actually, because there was no acting. There was no actors. A lot of what you see are just people in bars. Because the lidar camera, it, it it's just like this little object about this big, and no one knows what it is. So I could
Yeah,
go into bars.
Is it right to say that it's a little bit comparable to the size of a like those VR heads, like when you're setting up a VR space and you have the camera held high?
It's similar, yeah. Um, it's about the size of a coffee mug, actually.
Oh, okay.
And it looks very alien. I wish I had a picture to show you. It looks very alien. It's like this metal object with a glass center, and so
Mhm.
no one knows what it is. And so it's connected to a laptop. And so it was a little weird because I'd go into bars and I would open up a laptop and set this object on the table and just stare at the screen and start capturing lidar. So I'd always bring a friend with me to look a little less weird. And but it was great because people didn't know what it was. Like if I had gone into the bars with a camera and started shooting video of other people in the bar, they would be upset. They'd say, "Hey, what are you doing?" And I'd have to get release forms, and it'd be a very difficult production. So the lidar really afforded me a lot of luxuries in staying anonymous and capturing these people. And yeah, the way lidar works, I don't know how detailed you really want me to get. I could get really like nerdy about it. But yeah,
Please.
it's shooting out 1 million points of light per second at 10 frames a second. So it is, yeah. A lot of people think it's motion capture, but it's not motion capture. It's more like it's closer to rotoscoping.
Oh, okay.
So it's getting information at 10 frames a second, and then I'm bringing that into Houdini 3D software, and I'm really just manipulating a camera around it, and then I'm manipulating the points, and kind of morphing together and doing that stuff. And I was deleting a lot of data, and I was adding some data in as well. So it's also a hard film to categorize. Like it's animation, but it's live action. It's
Hmm.
somewhere in between the two.
Well, and as you just said, actually, as I was said, like it wasn't really like a set. As you said, it's like you went to bars with a friend with a camera there, and manipulating everything with your computer. So it's like the idea in itself of a production about this short movie is almost not existent. Actually, in your we can see in your credits, like it's basically you and then thanks to different people. I imagine the friend you just mentioned and like mentors about the short movie. So it's interesting to talk about this movie because it actually defeats the purpose of talking about a production. So I was hoping to know your opinion about this method, and it's like what could be the idea of a production using this kind of technology for your work.
Um, I'm sorry. Say that again.
Yeah,
What
I went a little more like the idea of production. This movie basically defeats the idea of production in cinema as we know it today in the mainstream area and everything. So I was wondering to get like your opinion about basically that the idea of production in cinema. If you think it's something that with technology such as this, it could be sustained in time.
Oh yeah, I think. I mean, we're seeing that in all forms of production. I mean, yeah, filmmaking's been really democratized, I believe, through the use of technology. I think it was actually Francis Coppola. He said, like back in the '70s, he foresaw the future of filmmaking being like a little girl in Iowa somewhere or something, like shooting a whole movie with herself with a camera.
Mhm.
And I think now we've reached that point. I mean, people make incredible work with an iPhone and just that, like no external lighting, nothing, not even actors. They just shoot their friends and they cut it together. Just clever editing. Uh, so I think that's where cinema is now, and I think that's what I did as well. I mean, there were no actors in my film; they were all just people. But it's kind of, it's the way. It's like uh, oh, what is that Russian editor's name? The Kulikov effect. Whatever you put.
Yeah, Kuleshov, like you put like
Kulish.
two images to get like you put two different images and the reaction, and it's like you can subconsciously connect the two images with a third one. Yes.
Yeah, like there's a scene in Forever, and I'm kind of being all like sad and talking about death and alcoholism, and there's like a man at the bar that I like zoom in on, like a time lapse. And that guy was actually like sitting with his friend having a great time drinking beer. But like in the film, he's operating as an actor in my film, portraying a very sad, lonely man, and he has no idea. So I think it's just priming the audience to believe what you want them to believe.
Okay. Yeah, I agree. I agree with a lot of that you just said.
There's a
So,
great what's his name? Nicholas Provost. He's like a Nicholas Provost. Yeah, he's like a video art person, and he made a lot of great pieces. Like one's called Stardust, and he's just shooting in Las Vegas. These people, and he puts like words and soundtrack to it, and it becomes a film. But those people were not actors; they're real people. So he was a big influence on me.
oh, okay. Yeah, actually, talking about influences, because this almost feels, because actually, for how the technology is going along, they always like improve these technologies and bring it like more into something like, I don't know, video game making, and even like using engines like the newest Unreal Engine 5. It's always like to push forward the medium of video game instead of another medium like animation or something else. So were there a lot of cinematic or more digitalized media in your influences, like as just said, like video games or something else?
Yeah, I mean, the original idea of the film was actually going to be a VR piece. It was going to be like a semi-interactive VR piece about AI and how it looks at us, and I was going to do all CG point clouds. But every time I told someone the inspiration behind that VR piece, they were much more interested in the inspiration, which was the story that's told in forever. And so I realized, like, no, like, this shouldn't be a VR interactive piece. This should be a film because I think more people will look at it and more people will connect with it as a film on screen. Like, I love VR, but it just doesn't really have the audience and it doesn't have the accessibility and good timing too because VR was very challenging in COVID because you can't have VR festivals obviously for obvious reasons. Um, I think that answered the question.
Yeah. It answers it. Yes. Yeah. Unfortunately, with COVID and pandemic, VR would have been difficult. So,
Yeah.
to sum up with the last question, is actually a question about what do you think you'll go next? What is your career future? And specifically, knowing that you now reaching, I mean, as you said earlier, you're in Europe right now. You're going to different festivals. So thanks to the Forever short movie. So I was wondering if you think you'll reuse the lidar camera to explore another concept, or it will be just like, okay, I did this with the lidar camera. Now I'm going another place.
Um, for my personal work, I'm going another place.
Hmm.
The LiDAR thing is very expensive. The the unit that I used was $16,000, and the company they lent it to me for 6 months because they said I reached out to them and I said, oh, I love the way this LiDAR works and I love the way it looks, but I'm a student and I have no money. Could you lend it to me? And they said, huh, well, no one's used our LiDAR to make a film, so that's a very interesting idea. So here you go. So that was like a one-time opportunity to get that, to work with that hardware without
Okay.
money. So to do it again would cost me a lot of money, and I can't afford that right now. If someone wants to help produce another LiDAR film, I would love to do it. But I think I kind of put it to rest for me personally. Like it was very fun to
Okay.
do, very fun to make. I think it worked very well with the story. It merges the concept of the film to the aesthetic very well. And I'm always exploring new technology and new stuff, so I'm already on to the next thing. But if someone wants to make a LiDAR film with me, I'll be happy to do
Okay.
it.
Okay. Perfect. Well, okay, well, that sums it up. Ripetiamo, Mitch McGlocklin e il suo corto Forever è in competizione al Lago Film Fest nella categoria Nuovi Segni dal 23 luglio al 1 agosto. Uh, well, Mitch, it was a pleasure talking to you. It was a pleasure talking about Forever. We're really big fans of your work, and well, we hope to invite you. We hope to have you here in our festival here in Lago, and well, your future looks bright. Let me say it.
Thank you, Nicholas.
Ok, well, goodbye and arrivederci anche a tutti gli spettatori. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.